The surface of the glass is cool to your touch. The blood of your finger smears on the surface and leaves a faint mark as you push the door open, entering another hallway. You've done it. After hours of scouring the peninsula, you fought your way all the way down into the abandoned laboratories. You walked the empty hallways and examined the lifeless corpses on the floor. You thought the worst was already behind you. The cries, screams, and relentless attacks by mutants. It couldn't possibly get any worse, right? Well, now you're realizing the silence is perhaps even scarier. And then out of nowhere, a huge room opens up in front of you. You peer into it and, you see something. On the opposite end, is that a person? You walk closer and are shocked by what you see. It's a little girl, but not just any. You held that photograph in your very hand. That's Megan. You reach out to her, she must be so scared. And then she turns around. Blood all over her mouth and hands. You step back, a drop of cold sweat running down your back. Her body collapses, a violent seizure overtakes her as a horrific monstrous arm starts emerging from within. You clench your jaw as the monstrosity assembles in front of you. You can't back down now. Not after what you've been through. You clutch the handle of your axe one last time and fight. What you were just about to face off with there was Megan Cross, yet another victim of horrific experiments on the peninsula, and also the end boss of The Forest. And well, today I'll be telling you all about it. I'll cover this creature's appearance, behavior, as well as backstory, so you know what to do when you eventually, inevitably, run into it. So without any further ado, craft some Molotov cocktails, make sure you have plenty of armor, and let's go. Let's take a little stroll down history lane. Sahara Therapeutics purchases the peninsula to research ways for people to stay healthier and live longer. Matthew Cross is one of their scientists who starts experimenting with the uncovered Resurrection Obelisk as a part of his research, but one day, disaster strikes, and Armsy escapes containment and unfortunately ends up killing his daughter, Megan Cross. Struck with grief, Matthew kidnaps Timmy at the very start of the game in order to use him to resurrect his daughter and bring her back to life. But, well, let's just say things misfire a little bit. After awakening, Megan immediately lunges at her father, killing him by stabbing his eyes and head with crayons, and then roams the abandoned laboratories as a young mutant until you, the player, run into her, thinking her body could be used again to resurrect Timmy. This is the sad backstory one can gather from examining your crayon boxes, drawings, and the restraining order you can find which was filed against Matthew Cross by his former wife. And yet, as sad as that is, in a way it is also very symbolic, effectively encapsulating both the start of the story when you awake, scared and confused in the airplane as your child is being taken away for her life to be brought back, as well as the end when you finally stand in front of her again, battle-hardened, determined, and ready to take that life right away from her. But let's be honest, even sympathy has its limits, especially when your whole vision shakes as a giant 6-meter tall monster charges towards you. Before we get into the actual fight part of this encounter though, I think I should quickly mention that technically there are 3 forms in which Megan is presented during this game. First one being her as seen in the school photograph, just a regular young girl with brown hair and hazel eyes. Second being her cannibal self, after resurrection, her body showing many lacerations along her spine and her hands, feet and face being covered in either blood or red paint. And last one being her mutated, enormous monster version. This last version, being the one you actually engage in combat with, is somewhat reminiscent of the Virginia, well, except for the fact that it is much larger, stronger, and more resilient to your attempts of bringing it down. It will chase you relentlessly, being almost as fast as the player when fully sprinting, and will only stop very briefly to perform its attacks, which are varied, hard-hitting, and incredibly dangerous, as one would expect from an endgame boss. From leaping to spinning attacks to a charge attack, all the way to being able to spawn mutant babies, this creature is definitely not one to be messed with, and if you want to come out of the encounter with it alive, you should definitely make sure you're well prepared. Luckily, you'll be given ample time to prepare for this boss fight, as this enemy won't spawn anywhere else but the endgame facility when you finally reach it, which will effectively require you to fight your way down the sinkhole, explore the numerous caves leading down there, and finally navigate the claustrophobic hallways of the vault. Before we finish off, it should be mentioned that the monster transformation Megan undergoes isn't exclusive to her, and in one of the endings, it is implied that Timmy has to fight this need, for the lack of a better word, all throughout his life. But hey, at the end of the day, if you're standing there in the large room, facing off against Megan after all you've been through, well, grip that flare gun, toss those explosives, and come out on top, because that's what you're best at, after all. But that wraps it up with everything we know about Megan Cross and brings us to the end of this video, which I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. All of those would be very much appreciated. And if there's anything that I missed, or other theories or facts of your own that you'd like to cover, make sure to leave that down in the comments as well. I would very much like to read it. Now with that, I want to wish you all a beautiful rest of the day, and I'll see you in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.